tonight on First at 9 this Friday the 23rd of May 2025. Quid pro quo. IMF says external fund facilities fourth review approval contingent on cost recovery electricity pricing. Tale of tariffs. Opposition leader suspects plot to hike water tariffs along with the electricity tariff. Minister of Urban Development vehemently denies the assertion. Meanwhile, Parliament heats up over government's decision to not enroll civilians for the KDU's medical faculty. Talking trade. No impediment to trade with India, says Indian High Commissioner. Emphasizes that Sri Lanka must build capacity and diversify exports to fully leverage its proximity and potential. Court calls. Former Minister Duminda Disanayake arrested today over gold-plated T-56 rifle probe. Matra magistrate orders former Minister Basil Rajapaksa to appear before court on the 21st of November.
Cinec Campus Open Day. මේ මස 3 වෙනි දින උදෑසන 9 සිට Cinec Campus පරිශ්‍රයේදී.
This is Ada Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Ada Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Drisingha joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms. Recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now, on your top story tonight, in the aftermath of a grueling forex crisis that prompted a full-blown economic meltdown, Sri Lanka sought assistance from the IMF, which has so far granted $1.3 billion from $2.9 billion EFF bailout package. As Sri Lanka eagerly anticipates another disbursement of funds under the fourth review of the external fund facility, IMF spokesperson Julie Kozak reiterates that the IMF Executive Board approval for the fourth review's staff-level agreement is contingent on the government completing prior actions, including restoring cost recovery pricing. Against this backdrop, the public consultation of the Public Utilities Commission regarding the proposal for the second electricity tariff revision commenced today and will continue till the 3rd of June.
The Ceylon Electricity Board submitted a proposal to the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka on May 16 regarding a second electricity tariff revision for this year. In its proposal, the state power supplier sought an 18.3% increase in electricity tariffs from June to December 2025. Following the submission of the Ceylon Electricity Board's proposal, the Public Utilities Commission stated that a public consultation will occur from today until June 3rd. In the meantime, IMF spokesperson Julie Kozak reiterated that the IMF Executive Board's approval for the staff-level agreement for the fourth review under Sri Lanka's extended fund facility is contingent on the government completing prior actions, including restoring cost recovery electricity pricing.
On April 25th, IMF staff and the Sri Lankan authorities reached staff-level agreement on the fourth review. And once the review is approved by our Executive Board, Sri Lanka will have access to about $344 million in financing. Completion of the review is subject to approval by the Executive Board, and we expect that board meeting to take place in the coming weeks. The precise timing of the board meeting is contingent on two things. The first is implementation of prior actions. Main prior actions are relating to restoring electricity cost recovery pricing and ensuring proper function of the automatic electricity price adjustment mechanism. And the second contingency is completion of the financing assurances review, which will focus on confirming multilateral partners' committed financing contributions to Sri Lanka and whether adequate progress has been made in debt restructuring.
During a press briefing held at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka yesterday, questions were raised regarding the proposed increase in electricity tariffs.
Now already we have seen companies being backed by the corporate tax, and we saw a company closing down recently, and they said high cost of production is one reason. So SMEs yesterday at the forum also expressed their dissatisfaction about the proposed tariffs
Especially on what?
on the electricity tariffs that have
So that's, I think, electricity tariff, is not central bank policy. What we understand is a government, successive government's commitment for cost recovery, electricity pricing, electricity and petroleum. That's a policy. I think that's, in our view, that's the right policy. If you don't get cost recovery pricing, then obviously it's not helpful for any industry. There's no cost recovery, which means there will be a loss to state-owned enterprises that has to be financed through taxpayers' money. So if someone complaining tax is too high, cost recovery, if no cost recovery means more taxation. If you don't want more taxes, government, that's the commitment, is right policy is to maintain cost recovery. How cost recovery is implemented is between the CEB, Ministry of Energy and the PUC cell, that they will come out with within the framework what is the necessary change to maintain cost recovery. That's, I think, the most appropriate and right policy.
චන්දරුසුමේ කාගෙන් බලා බෙස්සිග TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Meanwhile, in Parliament today, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa hinted at the possibility of a water tariff hike off the back of an electricity tariff hike. However, responding to the opposition leader, the Minister of Urban Development, Construction and Housing, Aruna Karunatilaka, rebuffed the assertion made and claimed that there is no reason for a hike in the tariff of drinking water. Meanwhile, Parliament also heated up over the government's decision to only enroll foreigners and officer cadets to the medical faculty of the Kotalavala Defence University.
Pursuant to the IMF agreement, the electricity tariff is about to be hiked by 18%. Is this tariff hike a prerequisite for the government to secure the next tranche under the IMF's EFF package? According to sources, the water tariff will also be hiked along with the electricity tariff. I urge the leader of the opposition to reveal his sources. We revealed the government's decision to hike the electricity tariff to the public before the government officially informed it to the people. Our revelation was based on facts, figures and information we received. We suspect... Will you let me speak, please? We suspect the water tariff will also be hiked when the electricity tariff is hiked by 18%. Our question is based on this suspicion. In the recent past, I recall the leader of the opposition asserting that the opposition's remarks are based on facts and information. However, a short while ago you said that you heard something, and now you say that you suspect certain things. I can categorically say that there is no reason to hike tariffs pertaining to drinking water.
The Auditor General has observed that about 20 trillion rupees are unaccounted for on Sri Lanka's island national balance sheet. What is clear through this observation is that the country has not been managed properly in the past. The incumbent government has implemented programs to address this issue. We will take a look at how much of these unaccounted funds we can find. It's not that simple. When debt is obtained, the assets pertaining to the debt are usually in the possession of other institutions. When debt is obtained for the Mahavali project, for example, the assets of that debt are vested with the Mahavali authority. If debt was taken on to develop roads, the assets pertaining to such debt are vested with the RDA. Nobody has stolen 20 trillion rupees. The 2015 government appointed a Controller General to probe the deficit in the island account. They say they began this effort. That is not true. I spoke with the Controller General just now. These probes are ongoing. I can categorically deny any assertion that 20 trillion rupees were stolen. I urge the government to be more prudent when they speak about these things. This is a respectful plea I make as the chairman of the Finance Commission. The government has decided to only enroll foreign students and officer cadets to the medical faculty of the Kotalavala Defence University. I have no clue if this is an NPP decision or a JVP decision. Those are two different parties. I don't think this is an NPP decision. Although President Dissanayake might belittle the NPP, I believe that the NPP is much smarter and more attentive than the JVP. Decisions like this led to Sri Lanka losing its chance to create an educational hub. That opportunity was taken up by India and Malaysia. The government protested when the Saitam and Ragama universities were being established back then. Those opportunities then went to India and Malaysia. They earn revenue off those projects now. You have the mandate now. Please use it. This is a very stupid decision.
decision? Why is Minister Vatavela silent? Are you in favour of the decision to close off the KDU? Minister of Science and Technology, are you in favour of this decision? I challenge someone to stand up and say this. I challenge someone to take courage and say that this decision is wrong. If you are in favour of this decision, please tell us why you think so. I don't think you will be able to mingle with the public in a few months. You respond only to that. Minister Vatavela is silent about the KDU but very vocal about what I said last. Minister Vatavela used to address the media in front of courthouses and challenge former governments bravely. He has lost that ability now.
සිනෙක් කැම්පස් ඕපන් ඩේ මැයි මස 3 වැනි දින උදෑසන 9 සිට සිනෙක් කැම්පස් පරිශ්‍රයේදී
Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Santosh Jha, acknowledges lingering challenges such as a non-tariff barrier but emphasizes that there isn't a fundamental impediment to trade called for renewed negotiations to update the free trade agreement with India. Joining our current affairs program at Hyde Park with Indivari Amuwatta, he also expresses optimism about reviving the long-stalled economic and technology cooperation agreement. Jha stresses that Sri Lanka must build capacity and diversify exports to fully leverage its proximity and potential. Looking ahead, Jha highlights investment-led growth as the key to avoid debt traps, citing India's ongoing and future investments in energy infrastructure.
How do you think Sri Lanka can work with India, especially to overcome non-tariff barriers, to other impediments to expanding trade with India?
You see, there is a very strong sense that I have heard over the years in Sri Lanka that there is a certain impediment to trade with India. I don't think that is the case. There are some issues and they need to be resolved. It's not that there are non-tariff barriers only on the Indian side, there are non-tariff barriers on the Sri Lankan side also. Trade profile of Sri Lanka, the export profile of Sri Lanka hasn't changed in several years. There are more than 5,500 tariff lines on 6 digits that is available to Sri Lanka at zero duty more or less, except maybe 100, 150 tariff lines. And Sri Lanka has not utilized, it hasn't expanded its production base or widened its export products in that regard with a view to taking advantage of the Indian market. Now, if you haven't done that and it hasn't brought you those benefits, then that is for something that there has to be a different strategy.
How and what ways can Sri Lanka what sectors can Sri Lanka utilize to reach the vast Indian market that's just above Sri Lanka?
I can easily think of energy as one. There is a tremendous potential for renewable energy. There is a huge demand for renewable energy, not just in India, but in other parts of the world. And Sri Lanka can clearly generate additional energy resources, surplus energy that it would then export to these countries and generate huge amounts of income. I think even if Sri Lanka was to utilize 5 to 10% of its potential that it has and use it for export, it will be able to become the first foreign exchange earner for the country. There could be areas like mining, value addition of rare earths. There is a significant potential for rare earths in Sri Lanka. There is a potash mountain near Anuradhapura that has not been exploited. There could be many examples. There could be new product. The idea to produce everything in one country is now very antiquated. The best ways in which the successful trading countries have been able to emerge is by becoming part of the value chain. On the question of investment, of course, we need to sit down and negotiate an agreement. More importantly, we are already promoting investments into this country. If you see, in the last 6 to 7 years, India has been the leading foreign investor in Sri Lanka. There is an ongoing negotiation between us that started, I think, about a couple of years ago, but unfortunately that has not continued for the last 1 year, which is the Economic, Technology and Cooperation Agreement. Now, this is something that Sri Lanka has to make up its mind whether it wants to do it, whether it will be advantageous for it or not. We are not pushing for it. We are not asking for it. We think that is the best strategy to go forward, and we will be happy to work with Sri Lanka if it is willing to come to the table and negotiate such an agreement that can solve some of the problems that Sri Lanka is facing, or even we are facing for that matter, on the non-tariff barrier front. And if we are the leading foreign investor and others are not investing and we are investing, we have a vote of confidence on the Sri Lankan economy. So you're telling me that you need more, which is a very good attitude to have. I would have the same attitude for my own country. And if the government of Sri Lanka was to look at it, because investment is a competitive business, there are many options for for the investors. And they go to the best place where they can think they get the best returns and they get a good feel about that country. Now that is something that only Sri Lanka can generate, that sentiment among the interested investors.
Are we looking at any investments in the pipeline, any numbers that you can share with us, and also the status of the oil pipeline from Nagapattinam to Colombo?
Investment decisions are best announced by investors and not by high commissioners. There are some government-to-government business that we are doing. We have an MOU on electricity grid interconnection. All these are going to be investments. They are not lines of credit that will be used to implement the project. MOU on the converting Trincomalee as an energy hub. There are 4 components there. The first one is the pipeline that you spoke about, which is a multi-product two-way pipeline. So it's not that something is coming from India only, but there will be potential for something to be sent from Sri Lanka to India. We are also looking at developing the tank farms under this arrangement. The third component is bunkering business. The fourth one is a possibility of an oil refinery in Trincomalee. The grid interconnection, that is basically to demonstrate capability and show that it is possible to export and surplus power from Sri Lanka to India or to bring cheaper power from India to Sri Lanka.
Former President Ranil Wickremesinghe is of the view that regionalism has assumed a renewed importance with the weakening of globalization in the aftermath of the recent trade war. Addressing the 5th Bay of Bengal Maritime Dialogue held recently in Colombo, Wickremesinghe says Sri Lanka should explore the possibility of constructing a land bridge with India to fully take advantage of its strategic position in the Bay of Bengal region.
The 5th Bay of Bengal Maritime Dialogue, organized by the Pathfinder Foundation, was held recently in Colombo.
The bay is the largest and most populous ocean in the world with immense economic potential. The Bay of Bengal community should strive to move forward. In addition to achieving sustainable economic development, these countries must address issues such as national security, increasing non-traditional threats, great power rivalry closer to home, and both environmental and humanitarian concerns, all of which require attention from the nations in the region.
The Bay of Bengal connects the eastern and western ends of Indian Ocean. Therein lies its importance. The international order is going through a churn. There is huge uncertainty. Because of these uncertainties, the importance of multilateral institutions has also been called into question. In this environment, there is a belief that the salience of regional organization has increased. It is time certainly for regional organization to play a much greater role than what they have been doing.
President Trump announced the reciprocal tariffs. Globalization will not disappear, but it will get weakened. What do we do here? In my personal view, we have to go for regionalism. Can we build a trade bloc? Can we lead to some trade integration? There must also be connectivity. The most important area is going to be the tip of the subcontinent, Sri Lanka. Economic corridor of Telangana, Andhra, Tamil Nadu and Sri Lanka. That requires a land bridge. It will open up the ability to have a new port between Vattala and Jai. When I have talked of the land bridge, this is my view and what the last government has said. I must say this is not the view of the present government. They have a different view. But nevertheless, I think both land bridge proposals require exhaustive discussions environmentally, economically, commercially, culturally and politically.
Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya met US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chung and Maureen Sia, Acting Mission Director and Program Office Director for USAID Sri Lanka and Maldives yesterday at Parliament. The discussion centered on the implications of the 3-month moratorium imposed on all foreign assistance by the United States, particularly its potential impact on key development initiatives such as the Women's Shelter Project and broader humanitarian concerns if current support mechanisms are disrupted. Both parties acknowledged the critical role of the United States as a global leader in development and emphasized the importance of continuing bilateral collaboration. The Prime Minister welcomed the United States' commitment to identifying alternative modalities to ensure uninterrupted support for Sri Lanka's development priorities. Furthermore, the meeting addressed tariff negotiations, recognizing their relevance in bolstering economic resilience and supporting the country's long-term trajectory. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Employment and Tourism Vijitha Herath expressed that Sri Lanka will be able to achieve its year-end revenue target of $5 billion based on current progress. Speaking at the Tourism Renaissance 2025 event in Colombo today, Minister Herath highlighted that the country is focusing on resolving issues in the tourism sector with a special emphasis on attracting more European visitors. The minister also revealed that President Anura Dissanayake is expected to visit Germany on the 10th of June, with the visit particularly focusing on boosting tourist arrivals from Germany to Sri Lanka.
Tourism Renaissance 2025, Sri Lanka's largest tourism exhibition, was inaugurated today at the BMICH in Colombo under the patronage of President Anura Dissanayake. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Employment and Tourism Vijitha Herath also attended the ceremony today.
We all know that Sri Lanka has achieved political stability now and that we are gradually improving our economy. That is the best message we can convey to the international community. Based on that message, Sri Lanka will be attracting a vast number of tourists. The number of tourists arriving in Sri Lanka is increasing rapidly now. With that, the country's revenue will also increase. We generated a revenue of $1.2 billion within the first quarter of the year. Accordingly, when it multiplies, we can generate a revenue of $2.5 billion at the end of the first 6 months. It is clear that a total revenue of $5 billion can be generated accordingly by the end of this year. We believe we can achieve that. As the tourism industry develops, all those who are involved in the sector will be able to strengthen their economies. Additionally, it will develop the country and the state of living of all people in the country. Even the parties who are not directly involved with tourism will be able to benefit from the development of the country's economy. As a government, we are taking measures to establish political stability, build a peaceful and harmonious environment, and strengthen the economy of the country. And with that, we will be able to attract more high-value tourists. You all know that before the collapse of the tourism industry, Sri Lanka used to attract many German and European tourists. It has decreased now. President Dissanayake will embark on an official state visit to Germany on the 10th of June. He will also be meeting the President of Germany. We are expecting to hold discussions on measures that can be taken bilaterally to attract more German tourists to Sri Lanka.
Welcome back. Now, former Minister Duminda Dissanayake was arrested today by the Terrorism Investigation Division over the probe launched into the gold-plated T-56 rifle found in the possession of 2 women residing at an apartment complex in Havelock City. The arrest was made after interrogating 3 suspects apprehended over the same matter.
2 women in possession of a gold-plated T-56 rifle were arrested on the 20th of May by the Wellawatte police at an apartment complex in Havelock City where the duo reportedly reside. The 2 women arrested were a 68-year-old woman and her daughter-in-law. The arrest was prompted by a tip-off received through the 119 emergency hotline lodged by a security officer of the apartment complex. During subsequent interrogations, the arrestees revealed that the firearm was handed over to them 6 months ago by a chef who had worked at the residence of former Minister Duminda Dissanayake. The suspect, revealed as such during the course of a 72-hour-long interrogation, was arrested later in the Ruhanballa area. During preliminary investigations, the arrestee revealed that the firearm in question was provided to the 2 women under the instruction of the former minister. The 2 women arrested and the former minister's chef were produced before the Mount Lavinia Magistrates Court, where the order was delivered to hold the 3 arrestees in remand custody until the 5th of June. Considering the nature of the offence, the Acting Inspector General of the Police authorized the Terrorism Investigation Division to take over the probe launched into the gold-plated rifle. Pursuant to the ongoing investigation, former Minister Duminda Dissanayake was arrested by the authorities today. According to reports, investigating officers have begun interrogating the former minister, who is due to be produced in court tomorrow.
Now, in other local news, the Mathura Magistrates Court ordered former Minister Basil Rajapaksa today to appear before the Mathura Magistrates Court on November 21st for legal proceedings regarding a plot of land in Mathura that was allegedly purchased using 50 million rupees earned illegally. The case filed against former Minister Basil Rajapaksa, who is currently residing in the United States, and 4 other defendants in connection with the purchase of 1.5 acres of land in Brown Hills, Mathura. The 2 suspects who had been granted bail in relation to the case appeared in court, while former Minister Basil Rajapaksa and his wife's sister Ayomagala Patti did not appear in court. The case is scheduled to be recalled for hearing on November 21st. Welcome back. Now in your business news, Deputy High Commissioner of New Zealand to Sri Lanka, Ishak Gabriel, encouraged Sri Lankan exporters to explore the New Zealand market, noting that the country is keen to welcome high-quality agricultural products that comply with the regulatory standards. Speaking at an awareness session on market access for agricultural export products to New Zealand market, the Deputy High Commissioner highlighted the mutual benefits of enhanced trade cooperation. Meanwhile, Chairman and CEO of Export Development Board, Mangala Vijayasinghe, emphasized the importance of aligning local production standards with international requirements to fully leverage the potential of New Zealand's high-value market. The session was organized by the Sri Lanka Export Development Board in collaboration with the New Zealand High Commission, bringing together a wide range of stakeholders, including exporters, producers, government agencies and industry professionals. This initiative was aimed at equipping stakeholders with knowledge of market entry strategies and phytosanitary regulations required to access the New Zealand market. Now, the Colombo Stock Exchange continued its upward trajectory after the central bank cut rates by 25 basis points on the back of lower than projected inflation and expected lower external demand due to geopolitical uncertainties. The all-share price index gained 21.09 points to end the week at 16,494. The index saw a sharp rise during the early hours of trading, followed by a moderate pullback and eventual stabilization, ultimately closing in positive territory. Notable contributors to the market performance included Hemas Holdings, Cooperative Insurance, Sunshine Holdings, City Holdings and Bukit Daran. Investor activity remained robust, with high net worth and retail participants actively engaging in the market. High net worth interest was particularly evident in the banking sector and key conglomerates such as John Keel's, Hemas Holdings and Sunshine Holdings. Market turnover stood at 3.7 billion rupees, reflecting a 46% increase compared to the monthly average of 2.6 billion rupees. The food, beverage and tobacco sector led market activity, accounting for 30% of total turnover. The capital goods sector and banking sectors followed closely, contributing a combined 30%. Foreign investors remained net buyers, recording a net foreign inflow of 155.9 million rupees. Now, in the forex market, meanwhile, the Sri Lankan rupee appreciated against the US dollar, closing at 299.4 compared to the previous rate of 299.8 a dollar. Meanwhile, overnight liquidity in the banking system contracted to 158 billion from 174 billion in the previous session. With that, here's a look at today's exchange rates. Now, in your world news, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has launched a blistering attack on British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and the leaders of France and Canada, saying that they had effectively said that they want Hamas to remain in power. He also accused Starmer, Emmanuel Macron and Mark Carney of siding with mass murderers, rapists, baby killers and kidnappers.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accused the leaders of France, Britain and Canada of wanting to help the Palestinian militant group Hamas after they threatened to take concrete action if Israel did not stop its latest offensive in Gaza. His comments were made in a video posted online yesterday and said that the leaders of France, Britain and Canada were on the wrong side of humanity and the wrong side of history, accusing the three countries of supporting mass murders, rapists, baby killers and kidnappers in reference to the October 2023 attacks on Israel. Netanyahu argues a Palestinian state would threaten Israel and framed the killing of two Israeli embassy staffers in Washington on the night of the 21st of May by a man who allegedly shouted "Free Palestine" as a clear example of that threat. The Israeli leader, whose government depends on far-right support, said Hamas had thanked French President Emmanuel Macron, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Canada's Mark Carney over what he said was their demand for an immediate end to the war. Hamas did not issue a statement welcoming the move, but Netanyahu gave no evidence of any direct contact with the three countries, which all described the group as a terrorist organization which should not have any role in running the Gaza after the war. The leader's statement, issued on the 19th of May, did not demand an immediate end to the war, but a halt to Israel's new military offensive on Gaza and a lifting of its restrictions on humanitarian aid.
That's all the news we have for you tonight. For further updates, stay in touch with Derana, the nation's most trusted news source. Thank you. Have a great night.
news and information you can trust 24 hours a day. Visit adaderana.lk.